I don't even know what to ask about the 7 kids. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. I mean, you're like a year younger than me. My kids are grown and gone.
Yeah. Well, I had a baby when I was 65. My little daughter's 2, and I'm 67 now. And people would always say to me, they'd say to me, "Oh, your wife is so beautiful. She's like really one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life." And I'll go, I'm like, yeah, it's part of the problem, actually. We would have a baby. After like 2 or 3 babies, we got into this pattern. So the baby would turn 2 years old. Maybe you know this. The baby turns 2 years old, and then we look at each other, we're like, it's time for another baby, don't you think? Like this one's talking back to us and saying no and saying shit and whatever. So we're like, maybe it's time to have another baby. So then we had 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And we love kids. I love kids. I love their lack of pretension. Because I work in a business that is steeped in pretension. And I like having kids, yeah.
You've seen a lot of changes in the film business and the theater business as well. Some of the biggest changes you've seen in the time you've been doing it?
Well, there's so many of different levels of significance, but I'll pick just a couple in the interest of time, which is that beyond the technological changes which have dictated, as people realize in the business, have been much of the cause of these changes and the root of these changes, like going from 3 TV networks, and you made an appointment. There was no recording devices. When I was a kid, you watched, and for you people who were older New Yorkers, you'd watch $1 Million Movie. I think the announcer, his name was Robert Molly. And you'd know his work because they used to have booth announcers back then. So when the tapes and the machines jammed and you were watching this movie, it'd say, "We're experiencing technical difficulties. We'll be right back with Ball of Fire with Barbara Stanwyck." And they'd show the 4:30 movie on ABC, and then they show Picture for a Sunday Afternoon, $1 Million Movie with the theme from Gone with the Wind. And you'd watch Chiller Theater and all these other things, and you watched movies. And you watch them in real time because there was no recording mechanism to pause or what have you. And you watch them as they were. And my father would come home from work. My brothers and sisters were asleep. And he would do these kind of extracurricular programs at the school he taught at on Long Island. And he'd come in and he would look up, and he was always had to, kind of lay down the law a little bit. So he was like, "Why are you doing up so late?" I'd be like, "I just want to, be here, sing a night and see how you're doing." He was like, "Okay." And he'd sit there and he'd have the New York Times that had those little pithy reviews. And he literally, Ball of Fire is the one I always use cite. He'd take the little clever thumbnail reviews in the New York Times and he'd say, "Wow, Ball of Fire." And he'd read it to me. He goes, "Barbara Stanwyck tells Gary Cooper where he can go in Ball of Fire." And I say to my dad, "Let's watch it." He goes, "No, you got to go to bed. You got to go to bed." And I said, "Well, let's watch 10 minutes. Well, sure enough, like clockwork, my dad would pass out and fall asleep. He'd fall asleep. And I'd watch Gunga Din, Passage to Marseille, How Green Was My Valley. I just watched all the old movies. The first one I ever saw that I, to this day, is still, as I guess many of us are, fixated on the earlier days and the firsts of our life. My first movie I watched completely until, like 1 o'clock in the morning was Sorry, Wrong Number with Burt Lancaster. And, "Leona, you got to get up and go to that window and scream as loud as you can," Burt Lancaster says. And I'm sitting there going, "Get to the window, scream as loud as you can." I'm like watching, I lay in bed with my mother. I wrote this in my book. My mother made me take a nap with her some days in the afternoon. And she'd lay there passed out, so tired. And I'd lay there and I would do lines under my breath from movies. So James Cagney, the guy says, open up. He's in the trunk of a car. "I need air." And Cagney's like, "Air? You need air? I'll give you air." Boom, boom, boom. And he shoots into the trunk of the car. So I'm laying in bed with my mother going, "Air? You need air? I'll give you air." Boom, 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 And my mother's like, "Be quiet," smashes me with her hand, smacks me. And so I just was addicted to movies. That was it. Cagney, Bogart, Edward G. Robinson. I could go on and on and on about this. So when I did The Essentials with Bob Osborne, I did it 3 times. And when I did it with him, it was the greatest experience of my life. They'd send me the cassettes. Some of them I'd say, I've seen them already. I know them by heart. Send me a box of cassettes. He'd watch. He didn't need to watch. He knew them all. But we'd watch shows and we'd compare. We'd pick 30 films. And we did one a night for the month or whatever the schedule was. And I do the show with him. And I was so effusive. I was so excited because I love movies and especially old movies. And we were finished and we're on the set, Bob and I. And the dais out in front of us is all the producers and the fact checkers and so forth. And Bob goes, my God, that was so much fun. He goes, let's have Alec back next year to do the show again. And they were like, okay, Bob. And I come back the next year, I do it again. And we do the show again. And at the end, Bob goes, that was even more fun than last time. Let's have Alec come back and do it again. And they're like, okay, Bob. Like they want fresh faces on this program, We do it the 3rd time, and before he opens his mouth, they're like, no, Bob, no. We're not bringing Alec back again. And I just remember being around someone like him. Who, by the way, can I tell you?
Loved him.
I loved
Sweet
him.
guy.
He was the loveliest guy. You couldn't find anybody who knew more and was so charming and so magnanimous. He was just the loveliest guy in the world, Bob Osborne. And when I picked, one of the films I picked was The Mutiny on the Bounty with Brando. And he said to me, I hate that film. I said, well, let's give it another chance, Bob. We say this all on the air. Let's give it another chance, Bob. He's like, and here, blah, 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 blah. Mutiny on the Bounty with Marlon Brando. We show it. We do the outs. We don't show the movie. We do the in and out. So we do the out. And Bob was here, and I go, well, Bob, has I changed your mind? He goes, no, I hated it. Just right on the air. He says, no, I hated it. I was like, okay, Bob. But I mean, you just bow to someone who, he did my podcast. I encourage you, not that I'm fixated on my podcast, but I did an episode with Bob. Listen to it because it's Bob. He's just the sweetest guy in the whole world, so smart. And his career, writing for Variety or Hollywood Reporter, one of the two.
Yeah.
And he wrote for them. I think
And
he was
an actor, too, for a while.
He was an actor who's best friends with Lucille Ball, has all these reminiscences about hanging out with her at her house. And so she brought him in to teach him about the business and made him a friend socially. And Bob was just one of a kind.
I did like it was a 90-minute thing with film clips on the history of Gene Kelly once, just with him. He was great. I had tons of notes. He had none and knew everything. I know, he was an encyclopedia. I love those little blurbs, the ones you were mentioning in the paper. I'm trying to remember it, the one for Wizard of Oz. What is it? Little girl lands in a foreign land, kills the first person she sees, gathers 3 friends to kill again. I think that's the Wizard of Oz, from what I know. I've been dabbling in a little of my work with AI, particularly with images. Do you have thoughts on how that's going to change the film business?
Don't get me started.
I think I did.
Well, I think a variety of disparate things come to mind. Like one is, and I've said this publicly, and I intend to try to press this case with other people in the who are members of the Academy, is you can't give an Oscar to an AI film. Go have your own Oscars. Go have your own Oscars, or have a separate category, but you can't have an AI-generated film compete against a live-action film. Editing, music, directing, writing, none of it. Now they had this little dust up about The Brutalist and how they tweaked some of their. Thank you. I never excited a woman as much in my life with a reference to AI. Yeah, so the Brutalist, they said they tweaked some lines to sharpen their dialects or whatever. Well, this is before the rules were laid down. Let's lay the rules down now, which says you have your, like animation, have your own category. If there's animation, there's AI. AI is a form of animation. What's interesting to me is you can, sorry? It's cheating, she said. Would you like to come up here and sit with us? No. Okay. But I think that the answer to this question is kind of disturbing, maybe, which is, do you want to see an image of Humphrey Bogart give a performance that never passed through his body at all? His heart, his soul, his line readings and so forth. And there is an interesting number of people who are like, I don't care. I'll watch that. What about you create a character who's completely an AI character? You make him a star. Chad Stone, the action hero Chad Stone. He's ripped, he's young, he's gorgeous, he's hot, he's all these things. He can beat the crap out of 100 people in a show. He can jump and run and, like a lot of live action actors I still know, like Tom, who's just amazing. But the point is that would you watch a movie where the guy was completely generated by AI? And the answer to that is probably, they wouldn't make it. If it's an action film, who wants to watch an AI character turn to another AI character and say, what's the meaning of life, Sherry? They kiss, they lay down on the bed, they do whatever they do. Now, someone said to me that where the AI industry will have tremendous beachheads is in the adult film industry, because it becomes victimless. Nobody real is being victimized by the industry to do films. They'll have AI porn. And I'm like, God, all this science being applied to that, But I think that AI is something that troubles me. And I'm one of the people I think we're going to start to slowly inject into the conversation how the Academy will deny Oscars to people who are AI generated completely. Let them have their own award show, literally. Have your show. Celebrate achievements in that field. I'm not against that. And of course, with AI, there's a contradiction. This is the last thing I'll say, which is that I did a movie once and we were all reading reviews and making fun of this movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in. And this is like 25, 30 years ago. And the producer walks by us and hears us all sitting down on the grass. We're on some location and he says, "Don't do that." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Don't do that." Because when Arnold goes to work, 300 high-paid people in the crafts of this business go to work and get a paycheck. And when they make the money on the film, maybe 10 or 15% of it goes into the development office that develops the next movie you're going to be in. You wish everybody well. You wish everybody success. You don't badmouth anybody. It's jobs. It's a business. But with AI, that doesn't exist. Who am I going to wish well? Chad Stone, the computer-generated image. Where can I write him? I mean, I just email it right into his eyeball. I don't know. But anyway, the point is that it's very complicated. But let everybody do what they want, so long as it doesn't intersect with what we're doing.
I want to go back to early life. I want to talk a little bit about Long Island. Do you recall when you thought you wanted to be an actor?
Not really, no. No, because when I saw films and things, I just never thought people. I've said this line before. I thought movie stars were people that were like hatched on another planet and brought here on a spaceship or something. Like they're not real. They're not like you and me and average people. And when I began to do it, I found that they were very much average people, some of them. But anyway, though, I went to college and I studied acting at NYU, and that was great.
Nothing before that? Nothing in high school?
I took an acting class for non-acting majors in GW, because I was in GW for 3 years full time. And a girl who I love, she's a sweetheart. I kept in touch with her kind of a little bit off and on. And I don't know anybody here in the New York area who remembers Pergament's Paint Store. Remember Pergament's? Okay, so her family owned Pergament's Paint Store. Her father and his brothers and so forth. So they owned Pergament's. Her name was Debbie Pergament. And Debbie Pergament, who was from the 5 towns of Long Island, we did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and she would say, "Barrick, barrick. I feel like a cat on a hot tin roof," okay? And I'm doing this, I'm like, okay. I'm not Kazan, but I know that's not gonna work really, so. So I did the acting class for non-acting majors, and I thought to myself, I'm better than everybody in this class, but that's not saying much. And then I go and I audition for NYU. My friend says, "I dare you." It's a longer story, but I go and meet this guy, Fred Gorlick. And I audition. I think I'm the 1,100th person doing Edmund from Long Day's Journey for him. And I think when I started speaking, he was like he'd heard this enough. So I go do the audition, I get in. They give me a full need-based scholarship. I call my parents. I tell my mom and dad on the same phone line, I say, "I'm leaving school. I'm not gonna go to law school. I'm going to NYU to become an actor." And my mother starts screaming at me on the phone, literally. "Are you out of your mind?" She's screaming. And I say to her, I go, hold on, let me just say one thing. I said, when I go back to New York from Washington, I will reclaim a lot of financial aid that I lost when I left the state, New York State Regents Scholarship, a bunch of things. I said, so actually, even though NYU is more expensive than GW, it'll cost you less for me to go to NYU. And my father goes, let's hear him out, let's hear him out, let's hear him out. Because saving money was his main goal in life. He was broke and had 6 kids. So I go there, I get the scholarship, and I go. And years later, please forgive me, because this is all true. I really mean this. I go to the bookstore, the famous bookstore on this is in LA. I'm in LA at the one in West Hollywood. West Hollywood?
Larry Edmonds?
No, it's a name everybody would know.
The Book Soup.
Book Soup, is that it? Yeah, Book Soup. On Sunset. Right, Book Soup. So I go to Book Soup. And I live right near there. And I was there for like 6 months or whatever, working. And I go into Book Soup one day, and there's Fred Gorlick, who auditioned me for the school. He retired from NYU, and he and his husband moved to West Hollywood. And I'm there, and I go, Fred? And he goes, yeah, how are you? And I go, he's like, how are you? And I go, Fred, at long last I can ask you now, why did you admit me into the acting school? I did the audition and you let me in, why? And he goes, because you were straight. I said, what? He goes, I had to have one straight guy in the class, and it was you. And I'm like, oh my God. And I think he wasn't joking. So I get into NYU and I do the class, and and it was fun because I learned famous people. God, this guy's name on the tip of my tongue. Bill Bly, History of Dramatic Literature. A lot of the classroom classes, because you did your classroom studies at NYU, then you went to Strasberg or the other ones, Adler, Jack Garfine, all these places for your studio acting training. And the classes I loved, oh my God, they were great. In that Bill Bly class, everybody took History of Dramatic Literature 2 semesters, and they gave you the big, thick anthology books. It was just, you learned everything. They made you read everything. Anyway, sorry.
No, actually, Jean Marie in the audience here wants to know what was.
Where are you, Jean Marie?
Where are you?
Take responsibility for this question, Jean Marie.
Yeah.
Are you way in the back?
There you go.
Where are you?
She's with the
What'd she say?
She's gone with the baby. Wants to know what you learned at NYU. Is there any part of your technique that you credit to your teachers there?
Well, when they teach you at Strasberg about relaxation, that's vital. That's vital. You got to walk in. And is that Luba? Yeah. Oh my God! This woman was my dance teacher.
Care to show us?
We joined a little ballet company she has to go and perform at these public schools. And I do the same thing with her. I go, Luba, why did you put me in the ballet company? And she goes, you're the only guy that can lift the girl. The girl would come out on stage, she'd jump in my arms, I'd pick her up like this. She'd tumble down, I would be like, and I'd leave. Because of that woman. Oh, it's so good to see you. Mwah. So Strasberg and the whole relaxation thing, Strasberg was the one who said, because when I interviewed Pacino, I had to go back to school to graduate. I could only roll so many semesters from GW to NYU. I'm at NYU, and they said, you got to come back for a 3rd semester. I didn't do that until 14 years later, 1994. And I interviewed Al. He agreed to let me interview him. And I watched all of his films. I read all of Stanislavski and Strasberg. I had 250 questions for him. I watched all of his movies. And I go to see him, and I wrote a 62-page paper, 65-page paper of an interview with Al, which I agreed not to publish. But, this whole idea, Stanislavski said, Strasberg said, if you don't need to use this technique, don't. If inspiration takes you to where you want to go. If you can't cry over this, and then we're going to have you do the substitutive memory of make you cry, and you're really resonating emotionally, and no one knows what you're thinking. You're thinking about your dead dog, and you're doing a scene from a play. And relaxation, because Al had the funniest line. He said, the relaxation to just kind of keep your life out of the life of your character. Keep yourself private, keep your work private. And you go in your room, don't watch TV, don't read too many books, don't sleep. If you want to maybe listen to some music or something that's appropriate. If you have to do a violent scene, don't sit down, don't lay down, walk around the trailer a lot and be ready to go in there and give it everything you got. And so the Pacino was funny. He said, I'm in the car. My driver, Bobby. And Bobby says to me, Al, how was your weekend? I said, it was good. How was your weekend, Bob? And he goes, oh, my mother died. And Pacino said, I thought to myself, I can't know this now. I can't have your reality blowing the wind of my sails off my course. I got to go do this movie today. And when he said that to me, so that became my mantra for like 5 years. I can't know this now. Hey, Alec, they're out of your favorite blueberry yogurt. I can't know it. No. And you just really realize that you got to get yourself into a neutral gear. You can't be too happy. You can't be too sad. You can't be too angry. You got to be drained. So that as you walk out there to shoot, because there's a lot of sitting around and a lot of time on your hands, you've got to be ready to go in the direction you have to go. So I had people give me tips about like action scenes, violent scenes, in the madness of a long monologue and doing 3 pages of dialogue. I've done films where I had long speeches and things, and you just have to walk around like a lunatic and just keep saying it over and over all day long. Never stop, never. You're leaning against the and you're doing it all day long, like you're nuts. And then when you go out there, you have a hope. You have a hope that you're gonna, because the most important thing is learning your lines, to study your lines and have that be away from you. But I worked with actors who were just, people say, who do you wish you worked with? Not really anybody today. I admire some people, but I think to myself, oh God, to work with Olivier. Oh good, imagine that. I did this movie with Tony Hopkins, and Tony worked under Olivier at the National Theater. And he said it was just, he said that Olivier was just, and with Olivier, 90% of it was technical. He said that Olivier, I can't do Olivier, but he said Olivier would call him into his room. And they'd say, Sir Larry would like to see you, Tony. Sir Larry would like to see you. Knock on the door, Olivier's dressing room, come in. And they'd walk in, and he'd say, come, my boy, come in, sit right here. And he'd be taking his makeup off and smoking a cigarette. And he'd say, now, when you do that scene, where I'm strangling you, you must strangle yourself, you see. And Tony was like, my lord? He said, you must strangle yourself, see. I stick my hand on thus, and you grab my hand, and you strangle yourself. So I must save my energy to deliver the speech. And you're gonna strangle yourself. My boy. And to listen to these things that Tony would say about working at the foot of Olivia. And here I'm working at the foot of Tony, who just, well, that was the greatest experience I've ever had. Working with Meryl, sure. But to Tony, I worshiped. Like I really was one of the few actors I worshiped. That's contemporary. He's older, but he's contemporary. And when I worked with him, oh my God, that's the most. Every day I came to work, I'm like, pinch me, pinch me, because he was so great.
You're clearly good with impressions. When did you know you had an ear for that?
When did I learn I had an ear for impressions?
Yeah.
You want air? I'll give you air. Boom, boom, boom.
That was the first one?
No, you had to entertain yourself when you're a kid. It was all like music. I don't have any, I always say, acting is what you do when you have no musical talent. The ultimate expression is dance and music and things like that. And acting is what you do when you don't have that talent. And so I didn't have any musical talent. I had a trumpet in the mandatory music classes in high school. And the guy from my neighborhood gave me the trumpet. This kid who he switched to his guitar and rock and roll. So he gave me the trumpet. And one time the valves are getting stuck and I'm oiling the valves and one gets stuck and it doesn't move. So I take a hammer and I tap it and the valve snaps off, the key. It snaps right off the thing. And I'm devastated because it's gonna cost my father. My father, he couldn't afford anything. So I walk up to my father, I'm really sad and scared. And I go, I broke Johnny's trumpet. I have to pay to get it fixed. And my father takes the trumpet, looks at the trumpet. My father was a very tough guy. He takes the trumpet, looks at the trumpet, and he looks at me and goes, "Your music career is over." So then it became all about, what does your ear tell you? Brando, when you'd see Brando with a sibilant and that weird thing he would do with his voice, and, we'd watch every Brando movie, and, you'd sit there and say like this, and get those S's going like this, and trying to get in the back of your nose like this. The horror. The teeth sticking out, jutting out, just the madness inside of the baffles and the chambers of his head. Not a lot of physical acting, but yes, sometimes. But, just voices, because it was sound. It was all about sound. And my music career was over. So I focused on acting.
This is what you did.
Yep.
I want to go through a number of different, both plays and talk about
plays.
Your theater career and television and films. Just maybe a thought or a story or somebody you work with, we come up with these. As some people know, started off on The Doctors, doing a soap opera. Just audition and go. You were young at the time.
Well, the world of daytime television, if you work, is a great, wonderful training ground. You learn a lot. And what you learn most about is the professionalism of acting. Got to show up on time, got to know your lines. There were people that came and got a paycheck and went out and got wasted all night long in New York and came to work the next day hungover, didn't know their lines. Not many, but when you exhibited that behavior, you were out of there in a day. There was one young woman we had who was very troubled, and she was a young ingenue, good actress, but she was just very irresponsible. And they just, the streets are filled with actors who are going to take that job. And I got the job, and I remember during that time of those 2 years, I remember thinking to myself that even though the soap could be trite in some ways, the material, that professionalism thing, I thought, this work is harder than I imagined. Like everybody treats acting, like Udo Hagen wrote, respect for acting. That's a literal, you examine it through that prism. And it's quite remarkable what you discover, which is that a job is a job. And I took a whole lot of jobs, so off-Broadway theater, student films from NYU, all this stuff. The soap I did for just a little over 2 years. And you start to develop your skills and methods and so forth to deal with directors, to deal with other actors. The last thing I'll say about that is that I did a soap right at the cusp of the youth revolution. I always use the same example, which is that all the cast of the soap was the adults in their hospital whites, and standing behind them in a more supporting stance were their children. And then when the young and the restless and bold and the beautiful came, it flipped. And all the young, sexy stars were the stars of the show, and their parents were in the background. So I came on our show right when all that was happening. So the older actors on the show, they hated me. Not really, but they were like, are you going to take my job? Whatever. But it was just an interesting time. And I did the show for 2 years, and 6 months later, it went off the air after like 35 years. The Doctors was one of the few half hours. And we had actors who they'd pre-tape their Wednesdays because they were on Broadway. They'd come in and they had them out by 12 noon to go to the matinee. John Pankow was understudying Peter Firth in Amadeus. He said that Firth would come to, I worship Peter Firth. I worship all these people that I really admired. And he said Firth would come in 15 minutes before the curtain. "Oh, Johnny, I'm so sorry." A couple of weeks later, 10 minutes before the curtain. "Oh, Johnny, I apologize to you sincerely." And then one time he comes in, it's like 5 minutes before curtain, and Johnny's dressed, he's going on. And Firth walks in with big bags from Petrosian. And he looks at Johnny in the makeup chair, he goes, "Oh, Johnny, I'm so sorry. There was a terrible crush at the caveat counter." A terrible crush at the even that's an iambic pentameter, maybe. But people like that who I experienced their experience, and they taught me things, and I listened to them. David O'Brien, who played my father, was one of my dearest friends. I have so many stories about him. But you go and you begin to put together your tapestry and your view of the business. Then I go to LA and there's another notch. Then I go make big movies, there's another notch. And you just, each chance is an opportunity for you to learn something, you know?
Broadway debut, Loot?
Yes, Orton, yeah.
Yeah. Did that feel like a really big notch at that point?
Well, Kevin Bacon did it at Manhattan Theater Club, and David Merrick came the last. I mean, these are like legends of the theater. And David Merrick came the last performance at Manhattan Theater Club and agreed to move the show to Broadway. Kevin couldn't go, so they had me replace him. And I did what's called a put-in rehearsal. And John Tillinger, who everybody called Joey, John Tillinger, the legendary Tillinger, would sit there with me, and he was really kind. He'd let me do whatever I wanted to do in the rehearsal, and then he'd go, "Now, Alec, my darling, what Kevin did was," this is a put-in. You just do what Kevin did, because everybody else here has rehearsed this play for weeks and weeks. So, and I go, so I thought maybe I go like this, and they'd be like, "But what Kevin did was," and that was my first Broadway production, was a put-in rehearsal for the Orton play. I became an Orton disciple. Joe Mahar would go out, and he had a book that he would brandish very theatrically in the scene. And in the book, he would go to the old Times Square magazine shops to get honcho and mandates of all naked men in a certain state, shall we say. And he would put that into the book. A picture of a guy like holding a flashlight. And he would turn to this guy and go, and he would look at me and go, "You have before you a man who was quite a personage in his way. Truscott of the Yard." And upstate, he'd show the picture, and Jelko's next line was, "It's you!" and Jelko couldn't stop laughing. He'd go, "It's you!" He couldn't, like quivering, laughing. Have fun. Mahar, I send my love to the souls of all these people. Mahar, who was like owned every Orton role he ever did. Owned every role. He just was like I can honestly say he's one of the 3 or 4 funniest people I've ever met in my life, ever. I mean, I would stand with Peggy Peterson by her desk, her dais there, lectern there, doing the show, because he was the stage manager. I wouldn't go to my room, I'd watch the show every night to watch Joe, who just always did the same thing, which was, I learned from him, do whatever you want to do, even if it doesn't make sense, but you feel connected to it. And he'd take his 2 fingers like this, and he'd do some weird thing with it. Like you'd be talking, he'd go, "Let me tell you one thing. I understand." Like, oh, you're either like borderline, something sick and obscene, you know? But he would just do things. He'd make up that he was very connected to. To him, it made sense. And I was on stage, I'd be like, "Oh, please don't touch me." You disgust me. What else you got? Can we get some more water? Is anybody in this house going to get us some water?
You want some more?
No, when they can. When we can.
You've continued to do theater. I want to get to some of the other plays.
Yes.
But it's got, I mean, and I think this crowd knows this, it's got to be one of the 8 shows a week. It's got to be one of the hardest things you do compared to making films. Why have you continued to come back to the theater time and time again?
Well, I don't find films, are we? Oh, God bless you, my dear. I don't find films can be challenging. Films are often very challenging. Films can be exciting. The bonhomie and fellowship with people on the sets of films, not just the actors, but the crew. I've worked with some of the greatest cinematographers in history. The greatest cinematographers in history. Juan Ruiz Anchilla, speaking of Foley dying today, he did Glengarry, Glen Ross. I worked with Tak Fujimoto. I mean, I could, on and I could go with a list of them. And Don McAlpine, great people. And Ballhaus, Bob Richardson, Carlo De Palma. I'll tell you a story about him in a second. But films can be challenging, and it's a lot of pressure. Like in my life, I only smoked cigarettes when I was filming because it was so nerve-wracking, you know. And then you do plays, and because you swallow it whole, because I always say, if you're a control freak like me, you walk out on stage, you know exactly what you're going to say, you know exactly how people are going to respond. They're going to laugh. I mean, it all kind of, when you get it well-oiled, especially a comedy on Broadway, it can be like the most fun in the world. But when it's not going well, I would always say that if you didn't feel well, I was sick once, very sick with like the worst flu in the world. And I remember laying on my cot after the Saturday matinee. So we're at the end of the week. It's Saturday. Not the Wednesday matinee, the Saturday matinee. And we finish, and I laid it, and I'm pouring sweat out of my body. And I got to do the show that night. And I remember laying there thinking, I hope someone comes and robs the box office. And they come up here to my room and they kill me. I can't do the show. I can't. Jerry Schoenfeld, with that real silk stockings dialect of his. Jerry Schoenfeld, I was sick. I missed a weekend of Streetcar. I was the same thing. I was sweating. And Jerry Schoenfeld, tough guy. He'd call you on the phone and go, and he literally talked like this. He'd go, my boy, how are you feeling? I go, I'm not feeling so good, Jerry. I mean, would you like me perhaps to send over my doctor to your apartment? And I'd be like, well, whatever you want to do, Jerry, whatever you want to do. It was like testing you, you know? But my ultimate thing about Broadway in New York is I crawl out of bed. I live on the West Side. I go to Williams Chicken on 86th and Broadway, if you remember Williams Chicken. And I go there to get a matzo ball soup. And I'm standing there on the northeast corner, crossing south to the southeast corner to Williams. And I'm standing there with the traffic, and this little old lady's there. And she turns to me, she sees me, and she goes, aren't you supposed to be on Broadway right now? Like, you can't believe. I'm fine. You want some?
No, I'm good. Yikes.
That's New York to me. Everybody knows your business.
I think it will surprise me to find out that Beetlejuice was actually your third film.
Was it?
Yeah, you had barely really started.
She's having a baby with Kevin.
Well, all right, I'll go with that.
No, but I'm saying that I think I did a couple before Beetlejuice. Not many.
Yeah. But it was very early on.
Yeah,
for you.
87 we shot that.
Yeah. Michael Keaton, talk about working with him.
Well, he's hysterical. He was a stand-up before he became a serious actor. That thing he did with Ed Norton, that was a Birdman or whatever the thing was called, that was just so incredible. Some of the best acting I've seen in the last 25 years, those two. Because I know Ed and I love Ed too. I worship Ed. And he would do things like improvise, because Tim was not too...
Tim Burton, the director.
Tim Burton directed. He wasn't too intrusive about the acting, especially with Michael. It was like, do whatever you want. So Michael Keaton, I don't know what the other lines are. He goes, hey, come on, give a fellow a break. When do we do this? And when do we do this? Save that one for later. Anyway, and he spits into his jacket and says, save that one for later. And Gina and I, we literally fell down on the ground laughing. Like, we couldn't make it. I said to Tim, don't shoot over us on him, shoot him clean. Because I can't promise you how I'm going to react to it. No, he was really funny, in an improvisatory way. He was great.
How big a deal was it for you to become Jack Ryan in the Hunt?
The only thing I think about that, oh no, thank you. The only thing I think about that was to get on a plane and to go there and to, I'd auditioned for 3 big movies that same week. I was in LA, I went to meet Spielberg for the movie Always. I went to New York and met Scorsese for Goodfellas, which Ray did. I worked with Ray and I said, Ray, you're one of the few people who I lost a part to them, and I realized I could never have done it as well as you. And we're in front of all the makeup people. He goes, I agree. Such an asshole. No, he was great. So we go I'm on the plane to go. I remember sitting there, literally. This brings tears to my eyes almost. Because the whole thing was about Tom. Nothing happens unless you have a good book. If it's an original screenplay, great. But with Tom Clancy, I get on the plane, and there in the old days, the first class cabin, with like 8 people in there, all of them have a copy of a Tom Clancy book in hardcover. Cardinal of the Kremlin, Red Storm Rising, and Hunt for Red October. And I'm thinking, there's a character that's the protagonist in those books, and these people are waiting for the movie version to come out, and I'm gonna play that guy. I remember thinking, what a burden that is on me. I was terrified. It was really, really very intimidating. But we did the movie, and they wanted me to make up my mind to do the 2 sequels I'd signed for without any sense of a start date or a stop date. And then Mosier came to me to do Streetcar, and with Jess and Amy, who I loved, and Carhart, who played Mitch. And we were going to go to Broadway, and I was very seduced by Mosier, by Greg Mosier, his work at the Lincoln Center and so forth. And I said, when do you want to start, roughly? They go, we don't know. And they were trying to get rid of me because they wanted to hire Harrison Ford because they were going to make more money with him. So they squeezed me out, and I lost the job because I chose. I mean, I could have made them pay me and said, I'm here, whatever time. But the money means less to me than doing Streetcar. So I went to go do Streetcar on Broadway, and I wrote this in my memoir where nothing occurred to me, nothing resonated with me about Brando until opening night. And I'm in my room. Amy used to come in my room and she'd say, let's practice our smoking, which was our joke for smoking a cigarette together. We have to rehearse our smoking. And we'd light a cigarette together. I smoked then. And we'd smoke cigarettes and we'd chat because I was in love with her. And she'd leave and it's opening night. And Mosier comes and he goes, how you doing? I go, not so good. I go, what the fuck am I doing this for? This is nuts. I mean, this is a complete waste of my time, everybody's time. He goes, let me tell you something. He literally said this to me. Opening night, the one night I kind of panicked. And he said, Marlon Brando is in a house on Mulholland Drive right now. He's 300 pounds. He's 65 years old, and he ain't coming down here to do Streetcar tonight. If they want to see Streetcar Named Desire, it's you. Now. And I was like, okay. And I took a couple of deep breaths and got myself awake and went down there. We used to drink like 50 cups of coffee a day back then. And this was in 92. And we go down there, and he really saved me. He really saved, because the directors should, I don't need directors to support me or be my father or mother or whatever, but I don't want them to be the opposite, where they diminish me or hurt me or are in my way. And Mosier wasn't that. He said to me, let's go. We're here now, it's you. So we go down there and we, did the best we could, and things worked out pretty well. We got some nice notices, and but I just remember doing that. And the last night I did it, because I was 34, Brando was 24. He was 24 when he did the play. He was 27 when he did the movie. So Brando's great gift was he still had the sheen of his youth while he was a good actor. Brando's the guy that, in terms of complex acting roles, they gave him the Rubik's Cube when he was 24 years old. And he went, tit, 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 tit. He went, you like this? They were like, yeah, like that. And the guy's a genius. He's a genius because while he was young and beautiful, he put the pieces together performance-wise and could act complex roles. And so I just remember I stood on stage the last night and I just had tears flowing down my face because I thought, I'll never say these words again on stage. This is it. This is my last time doing this. Because I was 34. I didn't think somebody, John Voight did it when he was 40 in LA. I think I remember, but I'm very acute about my age and roles. Like they'll say to me, well, I'm 60 7 years ago, and they'll say, why don't you play this guy who does this? And I'll go, you want me to be a guy who behaves like that, and I'm 60? I said, if you don't have that worked out by the time you're 60, you're a lunatic. Is the character a lunatic? And they're like, no. I said, well, get a guy that's 40 or 30. Get a guy that's young who still hasn't worked out that part of his life with women or whatever.
I saw the production of Streetcar. Did you have to fight in any way not doing Brando?
No, but Maria Saint-Just. Maria Saint-Just was the executrix of the Williams estate. And everybody thought she was a bit of a poser because all of Williams' papers were not codified and put into a vessel of some kind, which has been handled since then. But she was this very ferrety-looking woman, this tiny little woman who smoked. And she'd literally walk up to all of us and try to sink our performance. She walked up and she says, remember, Alec, that Marlon was a remarkably sexy man. And if you can find that in your performance in any way whatsoever, try to bring some sexuality to the role if you can. And I'd be like, thank you. She'd say to George, she'd say to Jessica, I don't think she really talked to Jessica, maybe Amy or somebody. She's like, the woman is a nymph. She floats around and flies around and moves around. She's not a great cow of a woman, thundering about, You know, she would say that about just to somebody else, like Mosier. So she gave everybody these horrible notes. And then Mosier had her kicked out of the room and she wasn't allowed to come back. But again, my thing now is when you work with people, just support them. Just support them. You know, if you don't believe what another actor is doing, then just don't say a word, just shut up. And just try to support them, you know, because a lot of people who are young, when I was young, I was scared. I do a scene once in a TV show, and my character is, they're going to shut down a medical clinic that I work in that services all this Texas countryside. And the woman who's the matriarch of this family's wealth, who provides the money, has decided to pull the grant. And I do the scene with her. I'm there with her at this benefit or this horse show or whatever. I'm like, Mrs. McCullough, you got to give us the money. You don't realize what's going on. I'm like sobbing. And we do the take and the director goes, do me a favor. Try not to play the whole movie in the one scene. We're going to get there. And
It's a good lesson.
Like, bingo, it's a good lesson. Every day is an opportunity to learn. Yeah.
It's about this time you did SNL for the first time. You've been a huge part of that. How much fun has that been for you?
Yes. Well, they asked me to come, and I realized right away that if you're not Stallone or you're not Schwarzenegger, where they're going to send up your persona, become a member of the company. Just pull your pants down and make an ass of yourself and do what they say. And we would do that. I would just come in there and do and have fun and be loose. And some of the shows were better than others. I did it 17 times or something like that. And it was really fun because a lot of what I was doing wasn't that much fun. You know, it was okay, it was good, it was challenging, movies, whatever, but it wasn't really that much fun. So in 1990, I did the first show and did it sporadically. Then, 2006 comes along, 16 years later. And I think I've kind of learned something about, they've all taught me what's funny. I don't know what's funny. Because you're not a comedian, you're not a comic unless you write it. People say to me, oh, you're so funny. I'm like, no, I'm not. They're funny, they write it, I just say it the way that I want to put the spin on it. And 30 Rock comes in 2016. And yeah, that was great, really fun. And they say to me, come do the show. And I said to Lorne, I don't want to do the show because I was divorced and commuting to see my daughter all the time in Los Angeles. It's 2006, yeah. And I'm on a plane every other week to see my daughter in LA. I'm going back and forth 18 times during the school year, usually to see my daughter. And Lauren says, I'll give you a side letter. Well, you don't have to work any Mondays or Fridays. You're off we're going to shoot all your scenes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I was like, great.
For 30 Rock.
For 30 Rock. I signed the contract and I do the show for that 7 seasons we did the show. And they would horse trade. They would say to me, can you work this Friday? Because Oprah Winfrey's available that day, and we had to change the schedule and adjust the schedule per the availability of these people. So we did that, but it was really, when they would come to you in the morning and give you the script for the read-through on a Wednesday. So during lunch on Wednesday, we'd go into a conference room where all the crafts were arrayed in chairs like this with an aisle down the middle, and down the center of the aisle was a camera that video streamed us to LA for the executives in Burbank to watch the read-through. So we'd do the read-through, they'd bring us lunch, and we'd sit there and eat and kibitz, and then we would do the reading. And we did the reading, and I had read the script, and I'd walk up to Robert Carlock, who wrote most of my stuff for Donaghy, and I'd walk up to him and I go, are you out of your fucking mind? You want me to play a gay Mexican soap opera actor? Opposite myself, we're gonna do the whole Patty Duke thing in the fucking show? And he's like, and he would always say the same thing, he goes, it's a big swing, it's a big swing. But we have faith in you. We have faith in you. I'd be like, you're nuts, you're nuts. And then I'm in there doing El Generalissimo, I'm the gay soap opera actor. And it was insane. But those guys, it was my great pleasure to have them. I did a sitcom, and I was so lucky to have, I'm not just saying this to be kind and because they're my friends, I did a sitcom with the best writers in TV. Nobody's as smart as them, Justina and Carlock and their whole stable of writers, they're the best. Because what it killed for me in a way, in a sense, was that for the rest of my life after that, I realized that much of what I was sent comedically was cute but not funny. It was cute, but it wasn't funny. And we would do the stuff with Tina, you know. I mean, I just think of this cascade of lines. You know, Jane, is with stuff I wasn't in, I'd watch the show. And Jane and Tina are talking about Tracy Morgan. And she goes, how old do you think he is? And Jane goes, he's black. He could be, she goes, he's black. He could be 20, he could be 70. And I'm like, okay. I mean, we were laughing our asses off at this show. So we thought that the writers were really, really funny. So that was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. Truly one of the greatest, yeah. Yeah.
I want to push on SNL just a little bit more. I remember there'd been a time where I hadn't talked to you in a long time, and I think one of the first things I said to you when we got on the phone was, I've probably seen sweaty balls 100 times. Did you have any idea at that moment that would like have a life beyond doing one sketch?
No. It's kind of weird, you know. My kids watch that. My kids will walk up to me and go, you just can't beat my sweaty balls. Oh, God.
Is this Carmen or the younger one?
My boys they're filthy. They're filthy.
And
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because if we get to the classical music section of the program here, how did you get started on the radio? Your radio career began where?
I grew up in a small West Texas town in Midland, Texas, and I had worked at a gas station and hated it. It was really hot and decided I wanted jobs with air conditioning. And walked into a TV station and I said, you guys don't need anybody, do you? And I don't even think I had an appointment. And I became a cameraman and a production assistant at the NBC affiliate in Midland, Texas. So I did that for a summer, and I was about to go to UT, University of Texas in Austin, in the radio, television, and film department. I'd made some small films. I worked for television, all in high school, and I know nothing about radio. Walked into a radio station, and I went, you guys don't need anybody, do you? And they said, yeah, we need an overnight guy. And so that was the first job in West Texas. And then I moved to Kansas City a couple of years after college, and they sent me to do a PSA, and it turned out to be a classical radio station. The day changed my life. I had no idea then, but I did the PSA for the theater company I was in. And then I said, you guys don't need anybody, do you? Worked for me every time. And they went, yeah, we need an afternoon announcer. And it changed my life. So by the time I came to New York to be on I auditioned for NCN and then QXR. I was in the right place at the right time.
I have a picture of you walking into a mafia restaurant and saying, you guys don't need anybody, do you? Just be careful. This approach of yours is making me nervous.
Yeah. So let's talk about this just while we're here. So I was in the restaurant with Zarin Mehta in the New York Philharmonic when they handed you your card to be the voice of the New York Philharmonic. I was there that day.
Yes.
And I think it came up, I know how it came about because you had done an interview with the New York Times. It's actually online. You can read about this in the LA Times. It's still online. And they asked you, if you weren't an actor, what would you be? And you...
A conductor. Conductor.
Well, at the time you said you actually named me.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
you name-checked me. You said you wanted to be me, and then basically the article in the LA Times was, who's Elliott Forrest? And you wanted to be an announcer. But that was the first time that the classical music community knew you had any interest in classical music, and the whole classical music world went, Alec Baldwin, and really grabbed a hold of you.
Well, the thing is that I said to them, they said to me, well, you're doing this job. How do you feel? I said, well, I feel like I'm the bat boy for the New York Philharmonic. I don't play any instruments. I don't play professional baseball, but I'm certainly here to help facilitate what you're doing. Now, again, I'm saying this again. Announcing on public radio, if it works, Spurgeon's good. I mean, Annie Bergen, I worship her voice. Is just so perfect. She just has a voice. You'd almost think she's AI. She's so perfect, And this guy, I mean, I love classical music. I was in a car, 1985. I'm driving, I'll say this quickly, I'm driving to a studio to go to an audition. And this is back before the internet and downloading and playlists and going to the website of the composers or of the radio and reading what they had on there. And you'd pick up a phone and you'd call an office there. And they'd send you to program. I mean, this is when live people picked up the phone, believe it or not. And you'd say to them, I'm going in the gates of Warner Brothers right now. I don't say that. I said, I've got to turn off the radio right now. What is this piece that's playing now? Well, that's Dutoit with the Montreal conducting Daphnis and Chloe, and it's whatever the label was and the number. And they give you, and I had a pad in my car with a pen, and I write all this down. And I go to Tower Classical on Sunset Boulevard near Book Soup and order all my discs. Then you come back a week or two later and pick up all the discs and pay for them. And I was in the car and I'm driving somewhere, and Schulte comes on with the Chicago, and they're doing the Mahler 9, and I'm listening to this, I'm just paralyzed. Because popular music had ceased to have any meaning to me or significance to me. Everything in popular music was, I love you, do you love me? Okay, you can stop loving me. Okay, I'm gonna call the cops now. It's all, whatever. It was all just love, and all this bullshit. And I'm older now. At that point, I'm thinking, this has no use to me. But then it was Zell and the Cleveland, and it was the Mahler 4, and it was Judith Raskin as the soloist, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I just keep going. And I start collecting discs, and then downloading eventually on Apple. I'm at the Philharmonic. I'm at Carnegie Hall in a box that Gillinson gave me. Clive, the executive director, gives me a box to sit there. And on the other side of that little insubstantial wall they have is Zarin with Matthias. And Matthias Tarnopolsky was the program director of the Philharmonic.
Now the executive director.
Well, yeah, with Mehta. And Tarnopolsky sees me during the break and he goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, this is Eschenbach with the Philadelphia doing the Pathétique. And I go, I just crave this. And we go backstage to see, they said, come with us, we're gonna go see Eschenbach. And you go to shake my hand with your right hand. And Eschenbach literally takes my hand like this, and he what I call popes me. He gives me the Pope shake, which you extend your right hand, I give you my left hand. And what he does is, he looks beyond me like, are there any more people that I might recognize that I know personally who are here in my room? And Matthias and Zarin say to me, come to my office tomorrow. And they offer me the job as the announcer for the Philharmonic. And it changed my life because, I used to go to the symphony at least 3 times a month, maybe more. And now I hardly go because of all my kids. It's tough to get out of the house. And, but I just, I have a lot of music in my phone and in my Apple account, and I'd have to say that if I've got 4,900 pieces of music, then probably 3,000 of it is classical, because I'll get all the different iterations. Segerstrom's going to do the Mahler 9th, and I look at the time code and go, oh, he does it in 26 minutes. Haitink does it quicker. Mazel with the Philharmonic does 32 minutes. As you well know, yeah. They bleed every drop of anxiety out of them. No one knows more than him about these time codes of these pieces. So I have like 10 Mahler 9ths in my phone, and I've got Dvorak New World. I got 8 of those. I got so many different interpretations. But there must be now. Do people still? Do they give you a swag in your industry? Discs? You get a lot of music sent to you?
Yeah, don't send us CDs anymore. We just have to rip them into files after that.
Right.
Yeah, it's all digital.
Yeah.
You won't say this, but you've been very generous to WQXR, to NYC. You've been very generous to the New York Philharmonic. You're on the board. And you've done a lot to help programming. You've done a lot for classical music, and I want to thank you for that.
No. It's easy.
But enough about me. We have to talk about Glengarry Glen Ross. And first of all, as we said, the director,
Jamie Foley,
just passed away this week.
I think yesterday.
Yeah. This speech that's in the center of it was not in the play.
No.
How did that speech come about?
He said to me, I called Mamet on the phone, and he was very friendly to me. With the actors, he would talk to you in a certain way, because he's not when he's not directing. I did another movie that he directed, State and Maine. And Mamet says, these men are not criminals. They don't have a criminal nature. and they're going to commit a crime. He goes, I never bought that. I said, you won the Pulitzer Prize
For this play.
for this play. You won the Pulitzer Prize. You want to change it for some reason? And he goes, yeah. Because I wanted to add this scene where someone comes in and really puts an extra layer of tension on them that pushes them to commit a crime. And I was like, okay, it's your play, whatever you want to do. And I come in there and I do the scene. We rehearse one summer. It's like August, where we're shooting in September. I come in August. They're rehearsing a lot. They rehearse for like, this is Pacino. He wanted 3 weeks rehearsal. So they come in and they rehearse. And I come in to do the rehearsal and I do it. And I'm not completely off book. And so I just start making up things. And I say things that are 10 times worse that are in the actual script to Jack and everybody. And we come to shoot. And I'd worshipped all these men. Price, Kevin was young at the time, but
Kevin
Pacino,
Spacey.
obviously. Spacey,
Jack Lemmon.
Lemmon,
Ed Harris.
Ed Harris, and Arkin.
Yeah. Alan.
And we do the scene, and Jamie says to me, I said, I really don't feel very comfortable. The guy's got to really lay it on so hard. I said, I know I'm the negative value, as I like to say in the piece, but it's tough. And he said, he goes, it's like that scene in Patton, when Patton slaps the kid across the face in the tent and says, you call yourself a soldier. He goes, it's like that. He goes, we're going to call this, you call yourself a salesman. You're doing it for their own good. If they don't get with it, they're gone. They're out of a job. They got a family. They got kids. He said, you're doing it for their own good. And when he said that, it was like this bolt of lightning went through me. I was like, let me at him, you know what I mean? And I go out there, and you go to do the scene, and I just didn't want to back off. I wanted not to disappoint people. I hate doing scenes like that, you know what I mean? Of course, I'd rather do, It's a Wonderful Life or something, you know what I mean? More sympathetic. But you do the scene and give it everything you had. It took us like 2.5 days, almost 3 days to shoot that.
Just that one scene.
Yeah, the DP was one of those great, this is one of the most profound things of working in film, is I developed a relationship with the DP. The cinematographers are vital. And Juan Ruiz and Chia, famous, who I think we'd worked with Babenco or somebody in a lot of films, and Chia comes, and then Chia was a guy who, Jamie was a great director, everybody loved him, but when you do a scene and when you did a take, and Chia would go walking toward Jamie to talk to him, he'd look at you and go, like, they'd signal to you, because they're watching in their own way. And they recognize what truth is or not. And he was just great, and it's like when I did Woody Allen's movie, Alice. The first movie I did with Woody was called Alice, where Mia Farrow, I play the ghost of her dead boyfriend. And she's married to Bill Hurt, and she's miserable, and she wants to change her life. So I come flying onto the balcony of her apartment on Park Avenue, and I'm the ghost of her boyfriend. And I do a scene, I sit on the couch to talk to her, and Carlo De Palma was the cinematographer, as he was in many of Woody's movies of that period, after Gordon did. And De Palma says, Alec, for you, sit, come si dice, you, the window, you, the window. I go, you want me to lean back so the light from the window can hit me? Yes, Alec, you're so good. You're so very good, Alec. You're fantastic, Alec, fantastic. Yes, you sit, the light, very good, Alec, very good. A couple of days later, I sit on the edge of the sofa. We're doing the same scene in the room, and I sit down, and my body makes an indentation on the sofa fabric. He goes, Alec, you are the couch, sit, come si dice, you not to, how you say, I said, I'm dead, so you don't want me to sit on the couch? Because I'm going to make an indentation on the arm of the sofa, and you don't want to have it? He goes, yes, Alec. You're so good, Alec. You're so good. You're so very good, Alec. So they literally go out, and we come back the next day, because Woody had some latitudes there, and they made a ceramic arm for the couch. They made the couch's arm, just that section of the couch, out of ceramic. So when I sat on it, there was nothing. You couldn't see anything. But I learned that communicating with the DP, even if you don't speak the same language, is recommended. That you can talk to them, because sometimes the director won't say certain things to you,
I have to talk about The Cooler. Yeah, right? You're got nominated for an Oscar
Right.
for that role. I love that film, basically because I play poker on a regular basis.
You do? Do you
I
really?
do.
Yeah.
Do you play?
No.
I can invite you to my
I got
game.
7 kids. I don't have any time for poker.
I'd love to take your
My
money.
kids play poker, but no, go ahead.
Just talk about creating that character.
I go to do the film, and I didn't want to do the film. And Bill Macy's a pal. We did a couple films, The Other State in Maine, Ghost of Mississippi. I love Bill. And he has me come to a cafe in West Hollywood, and he's there with Wayne Kramer, the director. And they wanted to meet me. And I go and meet them. And I love Kramer. He was great, very articulate, wrote the script. And he was a really, really great guy. I mean, he really lured me in. I mean, Bill is easy to say yes to. I love him. And Kramer. So we go to work to Reno in a casino, a smaller casino that's changed hands. A buyer bought it from another company, and they had to get their license, so it was shut down. The place was a magnificent stroke of luck for the producers. The place was shut down, and they gave it to them to rent for nothing. And all the felt and the dice and the sticks, everything, the chips, everything you wanted was there, the props, the room, and we shot there in Reno. And I'm reading the script, and we get to the point where, if you've seen the movie, I don't assume you did, but my character, Sean Hattis, he played my son, and I kick his pregnant girlfriend in the stomach. I know that they're kind of working me, and they're muscling me, and they're bullshitting me. So I'm reading the script, I'm in bed in my apartment, and he kicks her in the stomach. And I close the script, I call my agent, and I go, "What the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not kicking some pregnant woman in the stomach. Are you insane?" And he goes, "Read the next page." I read the next page, and I know she's faking. I know it's a prosthetic, and she's faking. So I throw her on the ground, and I pull the thing out, the big foam belly.
But we don't, as an audience.
Nobody knows. And I get her on the ground, and I pull it out. I go, "Oh my God, look, it's a boy!" The piece of foam is wiggling like this. And I read it, and I go, "Oh, Jesus Christ." I'm like, I can't. So I go do the movie knowing that I'm not going to be the psycho bad guy here. And
Not completely.
well, yeah. No, I mean, I thought the guy was a decent guy, just a little fantasizing about the old days. But then there was the, Jimmy Whittaker was the DP, again, DP. Jimmy Whittaker was like, one of the top DPs I've ever worked with. Lovely guy, patient, quiet, fast. We knew when you do independent films and you want to get enough setups to go into the editing room armed with everything you need, with that basket of shots you need to make a decent film, that means we got to move. And a lot of times DPs come, if you're doing a big movie like Mission Impossible, they got their own thing going on. They got more money than you could possibly imagine. I always joke and say, I've done films where the budget of my entire film was the budget for ice on Mission Impossible or Tic Tacs. Those movies spend so much money. And so we did the movie, and Whittaker, who I loved, he was great. Wayne, I loved. I wish I'd worked with him again. But there's nothing like a good crew. Nothing like a good crew.
Talk about Departed and working with Scorsese.
Oh God, those guys.
What a great ensemble that was.
Well, I mean, I did the Aviator with them. I played Juan Tripp, who was the founder of Pan Am and was a neighbor of mine on Long Island. He owned a big mansion. He's a wealthy guy and was the former president of the Maidstone Club, very prominent member of that community out there. And I played Tripp, and I'll never forget his daughter. Tripp's daughter was an older woman. She invited me to come to her home and have tea with her. Her name was Betsy DeVecchi. She was married to her husband, Bob DeVecchi. And I go to Betsy's house, and we're sitting there having tea, and she said, "Do you think Mr. Scorsese would like to have my dad's luggage for the movie?" And I go, "What?" And she brings down these pieces of like Halliburton steel or aluminum luggage stamped like into the steel, the logo of Pan Am. And it was beautiful. And she brings down like 6 pieces of this. And I get Marty on the phone. I go, she's going to lend us the luggage that says Tripp's name on it and everything. And has the stamp, this is the father's Halliburton luggage that he traveled with. And I go, "Do you think you're going to need that?" And Scorsese goes, "No." Like, stop rewriting my movie now and dressing the set of my movie. But later on, the movie came out, and Betsy DeVecchi was as lovely to me as could be, and her children. And I called her up on the phone, or I went to her house maybe, because she lived close to me. And I said, did you see the movie? She goes, yes, I did. And I go, how was it? She goes, I don't think my dad would ever say that word that you said. Because at one point I say, fuck. And I remember saying to Marty on the set, I go, I don't think this guy would say fuck. He was like a real polished gentleman. I don't think he'd say fuck. And Marty looked at me and goes, say fuck. I want you to say it. I need you to say it. And I go, okay. So I do it. And then Betsy was like, oh, I don't think Dad would ever say that word. And in my mind, I'm thinking, how well did you know your dad? You know what I mean? It's like, if he was in the airline business and never said fuck. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. What time do we have?
I clearly have not covered your entire career. I know this was supposed to be everything, and we would never get
please,
to it.
that would be so boring.
Well, I'm going to let the audience have the final question, which is, what's important to you at this stage of your life?
Well, when you do this for a living, I always tell people now to really choose and commit to one side of the aisle or the other. Because if you walk into a movie crowd and they think you're not really interested in movie stardom and working and working at the bidding of the studios and the networks, then they don't take you as seriously. They want to think you want this. Their attitude really is, we don't offer these roles, we don't offer these careers to just anybody. I had a studio executive say to me once in a lunch, he literally looks at me and he goes, Kevin Costner's at 30,000 feet. He goes, Mel Gibson's at 40,000 feet. He goes, you're next. And I thought, oh, they're gonna make me into a big commercial movie star. And then I thought in my mind, I really don't know if I want to do that, you know what I mean? To do all the shit movies you want me to do. And then, this was during the whole Streetcar imbroglio, if you will. And so I say to people, you can be a TV star and walk into the theater and they treat you differently. You're a film star, you do a lot of on-camera work, you're famous, and the people in the theater community are like, you're not one of us. And in the movies are the same way. So it's like, don't pick one, but whatever you do, commit. Whatever you do, be a part of it. I tell young people now in LA, I'm 67 years old, I'll talk to young people that I work with, they'll say, I'm out here, I'm making films, I'm not sure. The way everybody is, which is they're waiting. The minute they make it big and they get their first $1 million check, everything gets settled. Everything's resolved. I'm gonna buy a house out here and stay out here and roll the dice. But I say to them, join the academy, go to the screenings, go to the parties, go to the forums, go to everything and be a part of it. Don't hold your nose up at Hollywood, because it's not gonna accomplish anything for you. Don't tell Hollywood how you feel, like, fuck you, don't do that. Be a part of it. Get in that, if you live in LA, be a part of it. Screenings, the DGA, go to everything and just meet people and network that way. And like in New York, I'll say to people, usually people years ago when I started, you'd study in New York for a couple of years, then go to LA to work, and then if you made it big enough, like you're Merrill, you can come back in New York and they're gonna come find you, for sure. But wherever you live, if you're here, don't turn your nose up at any work. Any work is valuable. If someone wants you to do a play and you're at the Thalia Theater, I used to do showcases in, it's 65 seats, do it. You're only gonna benefit from working. You don't wanna be a classroom actor. Classrooms have their purpose, but get out there and get a job. Do a play, any play, wherever it is. Go spend the summer at this theater company. You wanna do a small role in a film, just do it. Because I always tell people, there's no acting commission that's gonna come and find you. They're not gonna knock on your door and go, Jeff, we're from the acting commission.
It's your turn.
It's your time. You get in the car with us, please. We're taking you to Warner Brothers right now for your wardrobe fitting.
That would be nice.
You can't hide here anymore, Jeff. The time is now. Let's go. And I say to my friends, I go, that's not happening. They're not coming for you in a limo. You got to get out there. You got to put it out there. You got to put it out there in any way you can, and you will be rewarded for that. I truly believe.
Yep. Well, you folks are connected because you had to be a member of SAG-AFTRA to be here. I want to thank SAG-AFTRA for asking me. Thank you for asking me.
And thank you to SAG-AFTRA, because as everybody knows, I think maybe you feel the same way as I do, we have a great union. We have a great union. We have one of the greatest unions in this country. So thank you.
And join me in thanking Alec Baldwin.
Thank you.